There is some evidence to suggest that potential telepathic intensity varies indirectly as the square of the distance between two telepathists. An increase in physical distance may therefore be used by one telepathist as an effective defense against telepathic intrusion on the part of another telepathist. A far more sophisticated intrusion avoidance device, known as schizophonetic partition, was evolved by one of the female subjects during the group isolation sanatorium phase. In order to subvert attempts by fellow subjects to establish a potentially intrusive telepathic rapport, she completely separated her telepathic nonverbal self from her oral verbal self. The telepathic self functioned as a false self, diverting fellow telepathists from the real or true self, which manifested itself only in occasional, deliberately confused verbal utterances. She thus protected her true self from telepathic intrusion by abandoning her telepathic faculty to a false self. Not surprisingly, repeated telepathic probes undertaken by other subjects could not discover the true nature of her experiential space continuum. The danger inherent in the use of schizophonetic partition as a telepathic intrusion avoidance device is that the false telepathic self tends to become increasingly parasitic on the true oral verbal self. The true self begins to suffocate inasmuch as it is starved of contact with the outside, and the false self gradually becomes the only self to interact with other selves. In the instance of our female schizophonetic subject, the true self began to express its moribund existence through the telepathic emission of violent images of decay, vampirism, disintegration, and necrophilia, which sporadically interrupted the functioning of the telepathic false self. The intensity and frequency of this emission of morbid telepathic images rapidly increased until it began to create the same depressed mode in those close to her.